was defeated and consequently lost command of the sea. The bulk of the army would remain in Japan and prepare to repel a Chinese invasion, while the 5th Division in Korea would be ordered to hang on and fight a rearguard action. 81. Sinking of the Kaohsiung. On the 25th of July 1894, the cruisers Yoshino, Naniwa and Akai Tsushima of the Japanese Flying Squadron, which had been patrolling off Aizen Bay, encountered the Chinese cruiser Saiyuan and gunboat Kwangyi. 81. These vessels had steamed out of Aizen to meet the transport Kaohsiung, escorted by the Chinese gunboat Saokayan. After an hour-long engagement, the Saiyuan escaped while the Kwangyi grounded on rocks, where its powder magazine exploded. The Kaohsiung was a 2,134-ton British merchant vessel owned by the Indokina Steam Navigation Company of London, commanded by Captain T.R. Galsworthy and crewed by 64 men. The ship was chartered by the Qing government to ferry troops to Korea, and was on her way to reinforce Aizen with 1,100 troops plus supplies and equipment. A German artillery officer, Major von Hanneken, advisor to the Chinese, was also aboard. The ship was due to arrive on 25 July. The Japanese cruiser Naniwa, under Captain T.G. Hihachi, intercepted the Kaohsiung and captured its escort. The Japanese then ordered the Kaohsiung to follow Naniwa and directed that Europeans be transferred to Naniwa. However, the 1,100 Chinese on board, desperate to return to Taku, threatened to kill the English captain, Galsworthy, and his crew. After 4 hours of negotiations, Captain Togo gave the order to fire upon the vessel. A torpedo missed, but a subsequent broadside hit the Kaohsiung, which started to sink. Depiction of the sinking of the Kaohsiung and the rescue of some of its crew by the French gunboat Le Lion, from French periodical Le Petit Journal, 1894. In the confusion, some of the Europeans escaped overboard, only to be fired upon by the Chinese. 82. The Japanese rescued 3 of the British crew, the captain, first officer and quartermaster, and 50 Chinese, and took them to Japan. The sinking of the Kaohsiung almost caused a diplomatic incident between Japan and Great Britain, but the action was ruled in conformity with international law regarding the treatment of mutineers, the Chinese troops. Many observers considered the troops lost on board the Kaohsiung to have been the best the Chinese had. 82. The German gunboat Iltis rescued 150 Chinese. The French gunboat Le Lion rescued 43, and the British cruiser HMS Porpoise rescued an unknown number. 83. Conflict in Korea. Korean soldiers and Chinese captives commissioned by the new pro-Japanese Korean government forcibly expel Chinese forces. On the 25th of July, Major General Shimayo Shimeza led a mixed brigade numbering about 4,000 on a rapid forced march from Seoul south toward Aizen Bay to face Chinese troops garrisoned at Seonghwan Station east of Aizen and Konju. The Chinese forces stationed near Seonghwan under the command of General Yi Jikeo numbered about 3,880 men. They had anticipated the impending arrival of the Japanese by fortifying their position with trenches, earthworks including 6 redoubts protected by a beta and by the flooding of surrounding rice fields. 84. But expected Chinese reinforcements have been lost on board the British chartered transport Kaohsiung. 85. Units of the Chinese main force were deployed east and northeast of Aizen, near the main road leading to Seoul. The key positions held by the Chinese were the towns of Seonghwan and Shannon. Approximately 3,000 troops were stationed at Seonghwan, while 1,000 men along with General Yi Jikeo were at headquarters at Shannon. The remaining Chinese troops were stationed in Aizen itself. 86. The Chinese had been preparing for a pincer movement against the Korean capital by massing troops at Pyongyang in the north and Aizen in the south. 87. On the morning of the 28th of July 1894, The two forces met just outside Aizen in an engagement that lasted till 7:30 the next morning. The battle began with a diversionary attack by Japanese troops, followed by the main attack which quickly outflanked the Chinese defenses. The Chinese troops, witnessing that they were being outflanked, left their defensive positions and fled towards the direction of Aizen. The Chinese gradually lost ground to the superior Japanese numbers, and finally broke and fled towards Pyongyang, abandoning arms, ammunition and all their artillery. 88. The Japanese took the city of Aizen on the 29th of July, breaking the Chinese encirclement of Seoul. 84. The Chinese suffered 500 killed and wounded while the Japanese suffered 88 casualties. 89. Declaration of war. On the 1st of August, 1894, war was officially declared between China and Japan. The rationale, language and tone given by the rulers of both nations in their respective declarations of war were being markedly different. The tenor of the Japanese declaration of war, issued in the name of the Meiji Emperor, appears to have had at least one eye fixed on the wider international community, using phrases such as family of nations, the law of nations, and making additional references to international treaties. This was in sharp contrast to the Chinese approach to foreign relations, which historically was noted for refusing to treat with other nations on an equal diplomatic footing, and instead insistent on such foreign powers paying tribute to the Chinese emperor as vassals. In keeping with the traditional Chinese approach to its neighbors, the Chinese declaration of war stated the palpable disdain for the Japanese can be surmised from the repeated use of the term woujin, which translates to dwarf. 90. An ancient, intentionally offensive and highly derogative term for the Japanese. 90. This use of the pejorative to describe a foreign nation was not unusual for Chinese official documents of the time, so much so that a major bone of contention between Imperial China and the treaty powers of the day had previously been the habitual use of the Chinese character, yi, which literally meant barbarian, to refer to those termed otherwise as foreign devils, typically describing those powers occupying the treaty ports. The use of the term yi by Chinese imperial officials had in fact been considered so provocative by the treaty powers that the collective bundle of accords known as the Treaty of Tientsin, negotiated in 1858 to end the Second Opium War, explicitly prescribed the Chinese imperial court from using the term yi to refer to officials, subjects, or citizens of belligerent powers, the signatories seemingly feeling it necessary to extract this specific demand from the Xianfen Emperor's representatives. 91. In the 35 years elapsing since the Treaty of Tientsin, however, the language of the Chinese emperors will appear to change little with regards to its neighbor Japan. After the declarations, Japanese soldiers of the First Sino-Japanese War, 1895, by the 4th of August, the remaining Chinese forces in Korea retreated to the northern city of Pyongyang, where they were met by troops sent from China. The 15,000 defenders made defensive repairs to the city, hoping to check the Japanese advance. On the 15th of September, the Imperial Japanese Army converged on the city of Pyongyang from several directions. The Japanese assaulted the city and eventually defeated the Chinese by an attack from the rear. The defenders surrendered. Taking advantage of heavy rainfall overnight, the remaining Chinese troops escaped Pyongyang and headed northeast toward the coastal city of Uiju. In the early morning of the 16th of September, the entire Japanese army entered Pyongyang. Qinghui Muslim General Zhuo Baodi, from Shandong province, died in action in Pyongyang from Japanese artillery in 1894 while securing the city. A memorial to him was constructed. 92. Defeat of the Btiang fleet. The Battle of the Yalu River in early September, Li Hongzhang decided to reinforce the Chinese forces at Pyongyang by employing the Btiang fleet to escort transports to the mouth of the Taedong River. 93. About 4,500 additional troops stationed in July were to be redeployed. On the 12th of September, half of the troops embarked at Daegu on 5 specially chartered transports and headed to Dalian, where 2 days later on the 14th of September, they were joined by another 2,000 soldiers. Initially, Admiral Ding wanted to send the transports under a light escort with only a few ships, while the main force of the Btiang fleet would locate and operate directly against the combined fleet in order to prevent the Japanese from intercepting the convoy. 93. But the appearance of the Japanese cruisers Yoshino and Naniwa on a reconnaissance sortie near Wihiwe thwarted these plans. 93. The Chinese had mistaken them for the main Japanese fleet. Consequently, on the 12th of September, the entire Btiang fleet departed Dalian heading for Wihiwe, arriving near the Shandong Peninsula the next day. The Chinese warships spent the entire day cruising Theria, waiting for the Japanese. However, since there was no sighting of the Japanese fleet, Admiral Ding decided to return to Dalian, reaching the port in the morning of September 15. 93. As Japanese troops moved north to attack Pyongyang, Admiral Ito correctly guessed that the Chinese would attempt to reinforce their army in Korea by sea. On the 14th of September, the combined fleet steamed northwards to search the Korean and Chinese coasts in order to bring the Btiang fleet to battle. 94. The Japanese victory at Pyongyang had succeeded in pushing Chinese troops north to the Yalu River, in the process removing all effective Chinese military presence on the Korean peninsula. 95. Shortly before the convoy's departure, Admiral Ding received a message concerning the battle at Pyongyang informing him about the defeat. Subsequently, it made the redeployment of the troops to the mouth of the Taedong River unnecessary. 93. Admiral Ding then correctly northwards to search the Korean and Chinese coasts in order to bring the...
Yes, I need a break again. Okay, that was the video splits in a few minutes. I need to go to bathroom. That's 43 minutes 7. So need a break. I will take not change. I will charge my camcorder. So I'll start to get sleepy because it's very hot in my apartment always. Not now, but the whole weekend it was 30 degrees and like 1 hour ago. It's been very hot my whole weekend.